The ayes have it. The question now is that vote Canterbury earthquake recovery stand part of the schedule. I invite some member to take the call. I call the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr Speaker, we acknowledge in these estimates, of course, that the department of which Mr Brownlee heads as Minister is only some months old and therefore does present some difficulties in attempting to, if you will, measure its performance. I want to just for a moment review, given that we almost are at the 12-month anniversary of the September quake, some of the issues that have arisen. And I should be generous to the government from the kick-off and say that I think most Cantabrians would acknowledge that the initial government response following the September quake was pretty good. We'd have to acknowledge that. Resources were put into play. The volunteer community and the agencies and the government agencies to a large extent, I think, exceeded expectations in many cases. Indeed, if we come forward to Sarah directly, I know that my colleagues in Canterbury and all my colleagues on this side of the House supported the Minister's appointment of Roger Sutton as the Chief Executive. Indeed, I think it would be fair to say, had we been in the seats across the aisle, we probably would have looked to Mr Sutton to appoint him. And I haven't seen, I think, in my days, certainly here, a universal support for a government or even local government appointment in the way there is indeed for Mr Sutton. We all wish him well. I don't think there was any commentator or politician or anybody else who criticised the appointment. That being said, the acid tests as to the performance of Sarah, given that its minister has wartime powers, has more extensive powers probably than any minister has had in the history of our parliament in terms of the legislative capacity. Secondly, that there is a $5.5 billion budget which this parliament has provided that minister. And thirdly, that minister, Mr Brownlee, has, Sarah, his own dedicated department. To quote the minister's words, and as he's fond of saying, we look forward to him getting on with it, because there are now some critical issues facing our community. There have been questions raised, and I'll leave it to my colleague Brendan Burns, who will touch on it, around the home heating and delays as we move through winter, a pretty cold winter, especially last week, that we've had. There are some substantive issues of basic human relations in terms of the quality of communication that people have received. And I have to say that between sort of leaks that came out of wherever they came, when the big announcement, the sort of Nuremberg-type rally was made, when the zoning was announced some months ago, when media had that information days before, and this was sort of an uncontrolled leak that materialised out of nowhere, and people were shocked, to even in my patch, where the council was days away from breaking ground, where morale was high, spirits were high, and 2 days before Mr Brownlee's announcement, the people of Karaki Beach, many of them were literally sitting with their insurer, with the new plans confirming them for their new houses, assuming there may well have been a delay, but not having any advice, including the Mayor of Waimakariri, the Chief Executive of Waimakariri, apart from an hour or so beforehand, that their community effectively would be toast. Those are basic things, I think, where the Minister needs to shape up, and his department, and I'm sure with Roger Sutton at the helm, being a person who's demonstrated openness and transparency, I'm sure that may well change. The difficulty and concern we have is now Mr Sutton is under the thumb, he is under the constraints of the public service, and that was evident when he came to Karaki Beach, was asked would he provide the geotechnical information to those local people who were distraught. He answered yes he would, he saw no reason why he shouldn't, and that has now over subsequent weeks and days been wound back, and now we know of course that information will not be provided until all the other zoning in approximately, 6 months, whenever, the never in Canterbury is confirmed. So the acid test for the performance of course of this department, and the acid test that the people of Canterbury will judge Mr Brownlee, his government and the department, is on two promises that were made and made repeatedly. After the September quake, and I commend the Prime Minister for it, he said he put a stake in the ground and said no one in Canterbury would be worse off as a result of this quake. And Mr Brownlee confirmed that before the Select Committee some weeks ago. He confirmed that. And it was Mr Brownlee who, including up until I think the 15th of June, has repeatedly said that his priority is that equity will be preserved by those property owners. They are the two acid tests as we move forward to unravelling and getting the detail about the offer document that the government is yet to provide to those people in the red zone. People have quoted back to me time and again, and even those public meetings where Ms Wilkinson, Mr Chair...
Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Oh, no, I think you're up. Sorry.
The Honourable Ruth Dyson.
It was